Hey, Mark. Thank you for joining us on the show. It's good to have you here. We got to hang out a bit at GCX, and now we get to have you on the show.
That's right. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So I know most of our audience knows who you are, but tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself and what your importance to Star Wars media is.
Sure. So I'm Marc Thompson. I'm an actor, and primarily I've been finding work as a voice actor. And I've done a lot of different anime and cartoons. I do a lot of stuff with Pokemon, and I've been on Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. I was in a show called Daria and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and more recently I was on Transformers Cyberverse, which was really fun. And as far as the Star Wars media goes, I've been really fortunate and blessed. I've gotten to do a bunch of the Star Wars audiobooks. So that's been really awesome for me because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So that's one of the kind of the great honors of my career so far has been able to do a bunch of those Star Wars audiobooks.
Yeah. I wanted to actually go in a little bit into your career before Star Wars. Even though we're escape reality Star Wars talk, we like to talk about whatever. And so,
Yeah, yeah.
like you said, you did a lot of voice acting before doing audiobooks, and you got your start around the late '90s with
Yep.
Daria and some with some of their secondary characters that were in the first and second season, I believe. And then you later on moved on to TMNT, like you said, playing Casey Jones, being Cobra Commander in G.I. Joe Sigma 6, Wolverine in the Marvel motion comics, Astonishing X-Men, which was Gifted, and then I forget the ones after that. Gifted is probably the
I'm
better of the
impressed you
runs.
knew that. Yeah, that's impressive.
And then
Yeah.
and then you were, like you said, you were in Transformers Cyberverse, which you were Megatron. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, is there a character over this career that you found the most fun to play, or and would you say any of them kind of prepared you to be part of Star Wars?
It's definitely a hard question to answer because I feel like I've been really lucky to kind of do a bunch of characters that are kind of reboots of shows I got to watch growing up. So like G.I. Joe, Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I grew up on those shows, so the fact that I got to do characters from those franchises is like really exciting and been super fun. Um, I think like one character that was a lot of fun to do that maybe is not as well known as I was this character Kid Muscle on this show Ultimate Muscle, and it's kind of this like anime Kinnikuman thing where it's like a bunch of like intergalactic space wrestlers, and Kid was like this super coward, and I got to do like a lot of screaming and yelling and running away and over the top comedy stuff, and that one was always really really fun. It never found like a huge audience, I would say, but
Hmm.
it was a lot of fun to do. And in terms of preparation, I think oddly enough, what prepared me the most for the audiobooks was in high school. I had this awesome director, Miss Hofstetter, and she cast me in a two-man show called Greater Tuna. And each actor plays 10 different characters in the show. And that was kind of my first time where I had to experiment with creating a bunch of different distinct characters and make sure they all sounded different. And I think I definitely like think back on that experience a lot, and it I think it did kind of plant some seeds and help me get ready to kind of tackle some of the characters in the books that I've gotten to do. So
Wow. Um, and I guess that means that you must really like the efforts from your answer earlier about your favorite role, because getting to make the effort noises. It seems that's a fun part, though, of voice acting.
sure, yeah, yeah. It's always like you feel a little foolish when you're doing it, but like it's easier when you're dubbing
Yeah.
because you can see the animation and it makes
And
more
so
sense
then you
like
can,
how
yeah.
this is gonna.
Whereas without that, you're just making these weird noises with no context.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, did you stub your toe or are you performing? Oh, okay, yeah. So
um, so up to this point, you have been focused on voice acting and making the rounds in American and Canadian animation, as well as some anime. You even appeared in several video games. So we're starting to hit the year of 2007, and the new Jedi Order series has wrapped up. It's very apparent that you're a Star Wars fan first. This is the year you were hired by Penguin Random House Publishing to read your first Star Wars book. Were you already reading the books that were currently out, And how did you transition from traditional voice acting to audiobook narrator?
Yeah. Oh, you did your homework. I so yeah, I'm one of those like horrible people that I was not a reader for fun. Like
Hmm.
I always feel guilty talking about this, but like I was the person who, if we had to do a book report in school, I would try to find the movie version and watch the movie. Because I was not a fan of reading. So when my agent called and said, "Hey, have you ever done an audiobook?" I was kind of trying to talk her out of it, and I was like, "No, not really." And I'm not sure if that would be my thing, and all this stuff. And she's like, "Well, it's a Star Wars audiobook." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hold on. Yes, 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 yes." So then, they sent me kind of a few pages of the book to audition with,
Hmm.
and I remember like really going over it and like really like going back and watching some of the films and really trying to kind of get as close to the voices as I could. And I was praying about it. I was like, God, please let me get this. And I go in, and I think in the audition, I went into the studio, and I was able to do a good enough approximation of some of the voices that I think that's why they were like, okay, let's use this guy, even though he's never done a book before. But then it's like I had to, record these like 6, 8, 10, 12 hour books, and I'm not a reader. So like it, first of all, it was like overwhelming to have to like read an entire book in a week or two. I've never done that before. And then it was intimidating to try to kind of perform the prose, is because like I think they liked that I could do the character voices, and I think initially I was maybe pretty decent at that,
Hmm.
but I was not doing a good job of like, narrating and telling the actual story. And at one point, the director, Kevin Thompson, who directs most of the Star Wars productions,
Yeah, he
and
does a great job.
yeah, he's awesome. And like, he's definitely a huge part of why I've gotten to do it for as long as I have, because at one point he was like, the dialogue is engaging, but you're making the prose boring and it's like really flat, and he's like, you got to find a way to make the prose as engaging as the rest of as the scenes, and he was kind of talking to me about how what's unique about the prose is that you're in the character's mind. So you have to almost treat it as if it's a monologue from the character, because there's a reason because I was reading it as like, he walked into a cave and there were water dripping from the ceiling and the echo, and it was like, this was all like boring, like, yeah, blah, 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 baloney, 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 my line, and then, but
Yeah,
like,
the stuff that usually
he,
takes you out of an audiobook. It's why I think Star Wars audiobooks are some of the best with what they do.
yeah, yeah. So like, and so he helped me to kind of put more meaning into that, and kind of think of it as, looking through the character's eyes. And so that really unlocked something for me. And now it's kind of crazy because like now I really enjoy doing the audiobooks. Like it used to be the animation was my favorite thing, but
Hmm.
doing the Star Wars audiobooks is one of my favorite things I get to do, because I kind of see how much more time you get to spend with the characters instead of just 2 hours in a film or a half hour, an hour in a show. It's like you're really with them for this huge journey, and you're really, you get to like really see their thoughts. Like you might notice and guess at what they're thinking in a film or TV show, but like in the book, like you're really in their thoughts, like you're really knowing what's going on in their head. And
Yeah.
now I've really come to love it. So
Wow. That's amazing. So you got to be around for the end of the EU Star Wars era. You got to be the voice of all nine Legacy of the Force novels. You got to do the Millennium Falcon and all nine Fate of the Jedi novels, all four the Old Republic novels, which are some of my favorites during this era of the EU. Uh, the 20th anniversary for Heir to the Empire trilogy re-releases, which got me back into Thrawn as well.
yeah.
You got to do the X-Wing Mercy Kill, Scoundrels, Allegiance, Crucible, the Hand of Thrawn duology re-releases, and then the original trilogy Shakespeare books.
Yes.
Uh, so did you have a favorite book or series that you got to do during this era?
Oh wow. I mean, I always feel like it's like they're all my babies
Yeah.
and I love them all. But I think it's definitely a tie between Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi, just because I really loved they all start to blend together after a
Mm-hmm.
while, but like I can't remember if it was, I think it might have been the Fate of the Jedi, but like some of the discussions about different types of Force users, and I thought Abeloth was really creepy and cool. I loved kind of the stuff that happened between Han and Leia's kids, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of the tragedy of that. And so there was so much in those arcs that
Yeah.
was really amazing, that I really liked. So um, yeah, so like
Okay, so around
it's
that,
hard to pick one.
yeah,
Yeah, but those two, yeah.
yeah. Um, so you mentioned you weren't much of a reader at the time, so that kind of throws this question a little bit. Uh,
Sorry.
but it's still fine because you got to reread the Heir to the Empire trilogy and Hand of Thrawn books,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you got to be the new narrator for them. Now, you probably didn't read them growing up, but you still knew the importance of those books. What was it like being the person that they brought in to do those?
Yeah, so funny story about that. So the one time I actually bought a book and actually like started to read it was, Heir to the Empire, because it was the first ever new Star Wars after Jedi. So
Yep.
like that was the only time I went to a bookstore and I bought a book. But then my laziness got the better of me. I started it, and then like halfway through I got lazy and never finished the book. So to be asked, like, 20 some odd years later, we want you to do this. Now someone's paying me to finish the book I never finished. So and I definitely, like you said, like I was aware of the importance of Thrawn and kind of his legacy, and how he's basically responsible for jumpstarting everything that comes after, the whole entire expanded universe and all that. So it definitely, I definitely was nervous and felt kind of a huge weight for that one, and a huge honor, even though I had not read all of them
Yeah.
beforehand. So
In a way, like it's one of those things of like, in a way, you without them, we wouldn't be where we are now.
yeah, no, totally. No,
Um,
it's
yeah,
amazing to think about how much that is responsible for. And Timothy Zahn is like super talented and kind,
yeah.
and so intelligent and insightful, and it was definitely a huge honor to get to narrate some of his stuff. So
So to quote your own voice and the written words of John Jackson Miller, "Forget the old ways." And
yeah,
in 2015, you narrated Star Wars: A New Dawn,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
which is considered a landmark title as it is the first in the new era of Star Wars novels.
Yes,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
how did that feel getting to be the start of this era?
That was, again, it's super exciting. And I think kind of a surprise, because I wasn't sure if with the new kind of starting point
Mm-hmm.
in publishing, if they would want to go in a new direction and maybe, find new people, and so, and they certainly have,
Yeah.
but I wasn't sure if I'd get to still play in the galaxy far, far away. So I was super excited that I did. And I can't remember if had Rebels come out at that point yet, or was this before?
It was just I want to say it was just before because I remember reading this book while also listening to the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack.
Oh wow,
Like, because
wow,
I
wow.
remember getting the audiobook like day one, like I pre-ordered. I was like, okay, I'm on this. I'm gonna, because at that time I'd been kind of lazy. I in the same way as you, where I wasn't reading all the books.
Uh,
So I'd not been keeping up with Star Wars books at the time. I would get some here and there, but I wouldn't get all of them. That was when
right,
I was like, I was paying for Audible at the time, so I had the monthly free book every month. And so I was
nice.
like, all right, I'm gonna just get every Star Wars book. I'm gonna pre-order them if I have to because I got that
Yeah,
free book that I can do. And usually Star Wars books they come out once a month, maybe two times a month at that time,
yeah,
or once every 2 months rather at that time because they were more spaced out and because they were resetting everything. But yeah, I mean it's crazy. And then the very next book, uh, was from what I can tell your first time doing a first person perspective,
mm,
Heir to the Jedi.
Yes, yes, yes.
And you got to essentially play the role of Luke Skywalker in this book. More so,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, more
yeah.
than say Heir to the Empire, where you did the voice, but now you got to be Luke. You got to
Yeah.
narrate his inner monologues.
Right, right, right.
What kind of challenges did this book present?
Yeah, it was definitely anytime you're doing first person, it's definitely challenging to stay in the character's mindset throughout the entire thing. Because there's a certain rhythm that I find when I'm narrating, I guess in third person, or like, and there's kind of a cadence that I find myself flowing into when I'm doing the narration. And so it was tricky to kind of try to stay in Luke's cadence and Luke's mindset throughout the whole thing, and but yeah, it was really, I'm a big Jedi fan, so like that was like really, anytime I get to do Luke was super exciting and fun, and any of the Jedi stuff, um, I really love doing. So I just remember, seeing the three of them on the covers, like, "Ooh," so so they're all like, anytime I get the call to do Star Wars, I'm like, I feel super honored and excited and
Yeah.
kind of burdened by, I want to live up to the legacy. I want to live up to, how I know how important it is to me as a fan. So I want to make sure that the quality is the best it can be. So
Yeah. Uh, and so from there, you would get to be the voice of the first post-return books in this era. So you got to do the Aftermath trilogy,
yep.
but you'd also get the chance to return to a character you read for only a few years back, Thrawn.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, the voice between both versions of Thrawn are similar, but there's also some slight differences in how you make them sound.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Was this something that was suggested to you by the team working on the book, or did you just think a new Thrawn needed a new voice?
It was basically, again, that was a pleasant surprise, because that one I was really surprised by, because I thought for sure they would want to distinguish between the older canon Thrawn and the newer canon Thrawn. But they liked me and they wanted me to do it again, and I was like, yeah. So at that point, Thrawn had been on Rebels, and I definitely had been watching Rebels as a fan, and Lars Mikkelsen, like you said, like he was kind of doing something similar, because I think that's just the way Thrawn is written,
Mm-hmm.
kind of calm, cool, collected, calculating. So he had all those qualities, but he also had this really interesting kind of rhythm, and kind of it was very hushed the way he was performing him, and there's some slight pronunciation things that he did that were interesting, and so I was definitely made a conscious decision to try to emulate what was happening on Rebels, because I thought, with the new canon, more people are going to maybe be familiar with Thrawn because of the cartoon, than necessarily, the older fans from the 90s. Or so I figured, like, let me do that to make sure that it's consistent with how he is now. And so that was kind of something I brought to the table, and they were cool with that and agreed, and decided to go that way.
So now we're finally almost caught up to what I'd say is the new era of Star Wars books, and where we're at currently.
Yeah.
You never gave up voice acting.
No.
As I mentioned earlier, you were doing work in all forms continuously, and you brought up that you're still doing Transformers. You were given the chance to be in an animated Star Wars project, though.
Yes. 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 Yes.
You were the English voice of Lan for Star Wars Vision's Tatooine Rhapsody.
That's right.
What was it like to be in a Star Wars show versus narrating a novel?
That was really cool. Just because I had so many animation credits that, I'm a fan of animation, and I really, I'd still want to work on more of them, but I was really hoping to kind of get to work on some of the animation projects, and I even, like, when they announced that Thrawn was coming to Rebels, I like called my agent and was like, "Hey, can you like reach out to them and see, because I've done them in the books, maybe they'd be open." And by the time they had announced it, they had already, like,
Yeah,
recorded everything.
they were
So,
already like months into it, had Lars and
yeah, exactly, yeah. So I would still love to work on an actual, like a multi episode, whatever.
Yeah.
But my a good friend of mine, Mike Sinner-Nicholas, who played Leonardo in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and is a very prolific anime director and does a lot of dubbing work, owns NYAV Studios. He got hired to do Star Wars Visions, and he knew what a big Star Wars fan I was, and kind of suggested, hey, are you open to some of these ideas for casting? And I know this guy who does a bunch of the audiobooks, and it might be a fun thing. And they were like, okay, yeah, sure. So he called me in, and I got to do some ancillary stuff, but then I also got to do LAN, which was really exciting and fun. And so it was definitely like answered prayer, dream come true stuff to be like, in an animation, and it was a very cool project too, because it was just the style of animation was similar to a lot of some of the shows I've already worked on. So it kind of felt like this really cool melding of two worlds, because it's like the animation and the audiobook narration don't always mix, but it was fun to kind of see them come together in that way. And it was so fun. Like Mike called me in, and we were both like head over heels to be working on this project. So like he, we did our lines, but then he would like say, "Do you want to see the rest?" I was like, "Yeah." So like he like sat me down and we watched like a couple of the episodes and like as they're being mixed and stuff, and it was just so we were so excited to be a part of that, and that was awesome. Like that was just super super fun.
Yeah, if they work on a certain project, I have a idea of where I think I would love to hear your voice brought in. Which we're actually about to talk about that era of Star Wars books, because now we're hitting the High Republic, which is I would argue is a brand new era for Star Wars, like in terms of like really like this is 2020 became a new era. Like we got new High Republic, which is a brand new setting, so many exciting characters, and you're arguably the voice of Star Wars to a lot of listeners. But the High Republic even more so. Because you narrated all three of the adult novels for Phase 1.
Yep.
So what was it like working on such a vast project with so many voices united to tell a larger single story?
Yeah. I love the High Republic. Like, I think I mentioned earlier that like, lots of people like Star Wars for lots of different reasons. There's people that love kind of the bounty hunter aspect and the resistance versus the Empire, or resistance First Order, Rebel, Empire. But I'm a big Jedi guy. Like I love the mystery of the Force. I love kind of the honor and the mission of the Jedi, and so to get to kind of be a part of this new era and kind of really examining the Jedi maybe possibly at their peak, like possibly at like when they're really living up to their ideals, and kind of there's many of them, and they're not being shot down in Order 66, but like they're kind of setting out and really trying to spread light and life throughout the galaxy. I love that, and I feel like the authors have done such an amazing job really kind of diving deeper into the mythology of the Force and how different Jedi view the Force differently, seeing their struggles. I think the idea of the Nile being the antithesis of the Jedi, like the Jedi want peace and order and harmony, and the Nile just want chaos and anarchy, and I'm going to do what I want, and like selflessness versus selfishness. It's like I couldn't have predicted how well those two groups play off of each other. And like it's because I was like, no Sith, like what's gonna happen, like but like it was like I'm really loving Markion and Ro and just all the conflict. So I'm kind of in heaven doing those books. It's just everything I love about Star Wars, and I will say like introducing all the new characters and and not having kind of like in the other books that I had gotten to do, I would have like the films or the shows to kind of use as an anchor or a touch point and kind of refer to, but to have all these characters are brand spanking new except for like Yoda or Terra Sinube, or
Yeah,
so like
Yoda I don't think has been in much of the actual
No,
novels. No,
no, no.
he's
Yeah, yeah.
more
So
comics.
yeah, so that was a little daunting and can be a little challenging to
Mm.
try to, you know, really come up with distinct voices for all those. But it's a fun challenge, and it's definitely rewarding to do it. And then I do get to see a lot of the concept art. I read the comics, and they kind of had, when we were starting off, they gave us this like, Bible that had a bunch of the concept art that's been released
Yeah.
online. So I got to see a lot of those that definitely helped inform the characters, and it was very, very useful. So, but yeah, it's awesome. Like I'm so grateful I get to be a part of the High Republic.
Going back to the Nihil and Markion Row,
Yeah, yeah,
you've quickly become the voice of the main antagonist for Phase 1, Markion Row himself,
yeah.
thanks to the audio drama Tempest Runner. I personally love that Star Wars is going back into audio dramas because
Yeah.
they used to do them back in the 70s and 80s.
Yep.
Um, in more recent years, we've gotten Dooku Jedi Lost, Tempest Runner, and in Phase 2 of the High Republic, we're going to get the Battle of Jeddah,
Yeah.
which sounds exciting just from the title.
Right.
So, how does working on an audio drama compared to how does that compare to straightforward narrating or even voice
Yeah.
acting?
It's I guess it's more similar to like pre-lay animation because you're just doing the dialogue and you're just doing your characters. So, um, the fun part about that is if we're lucky, if there's no COVID, we get to like play off the other actors. So, like when we did Dooku Jedi Lost, they had like 5 or 6 microphones in a room, and we were all kind of in there together, and we got to play off of each other and kind of do scenes together. So it really was like, the old radio show where they're doing the Foley or whatever. Like they did ours, the sound effects they do digitally, but like, but like we got to like, actually read the scene together. And there's nothing that can replace that because you get so inspired by someone else's performance, and there's a way that they read a line that's going to be different than the way I would read the line to myself. And so inevitably their performance influences my performance, and then my reaction to their performance reflects, inspires their performance. And, so it's just you feed off of each other, and there's this synergy that happens, and it's so fun to do that. It's much more like theater. And so I love those. They're definitely, from what I hear, much more difficult to produce on the production end because it's like coordinating everything, casting everything. Then you have to like, insert and edit everybody's stuff together. And so they're more rare because they take a lot more to do. But I love that, like you said, like I love that they're doing that more often, and I hope they will continue to do so because they're really special. Like, as great as the audiobooks are in terms of immersiveness and the sound and the effects, like when you have a full cast doing it, it just ups everything a notch. It just like raises the level of everything. So I hope we get to do a lot more of those because they're really, really fun to do.
Yeah. All right. So this month, however, we've gotten The Princess and the Scoundrel that just came out.
Yes.
We're talking about it for today's episode of the podcast.
Woohoo.
Like we mentioned last time, you worked with several narrators for audio dramas, and you've also done some short story collections as well for the From a Certain Point of View books. So you've gotten to work kind of with other narrators. What was it like having an actual co-narrator though for The Princess and the Scoundrel?
Yeah, that was interesting. That was kind of a new approach, and I can't wait to hear what Saskia has done with her chapters.
I'll say,
reading.
yeah, I'll say from
Go,
hearing
go ahead.
from hearing it myself, because I got to listen to it. I'd say you both did beautifully, and I love Saskia's reading of Leia,
Yeah,
personally.
that's great. Yeah. Like I loved that. The way Beth kind of like I one of the devices of the book that I don't think is a spoiler because people will know this when they pick it up or buy it. But like, you have some of the chapters are from Han's perspective, and then some of the chapters are from Leia's perspective, and that was a really cool literary device and a cool way to approach the story. To get to again, like you get to kind of go in each of their minds in a very natural way, and so I love that as a storytelling device, and I feel like you really get to know Han and Leia and what makes them tick on a much deeper level, you know. So and it felt very true to the films. Like it
Yeah.
felt like she really understood kind of those characters, and it felt very true to the spirit of what we see in Empire and Jedi and Star Wars, and I really love doing it. And then there is a special bonus at the end that we adapted specifically for the audio book that listeners might enjoy for that last chapter.
So this was also a chance to go back to Han Solo and Leia Organa, who you haven't read for since the Aftermath trilogy.
Yeah.
And in a way, this novel sets the stage for those novels
Yep.
because there's some stuff there. And it takes place almost just before them.
Yeah.
I think on the timeline, it's this, the Shattered Empire comic, and then the Aftermath novels.
Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah.
So how did it feel getting to go back to these characters after about 5 years?
Yeah, it was pretty. It's really cool. Like I was thinking about it, and like I missed them. You know, like I missed getting to be with Han and Chewie. Come on, you know, like it's just like it's he's so fun to do, and kind of that you know cockiness and that kind of bravado, and like you know, and their banter is just like you don't get much better than Han and Leia arguing with each other. So it's like it was really fun. It was like visiting an old friend. It's like, you know, oh wow, I miss these guys. I love seeing them together again. And so it was really special to get to do it once more.
All right. Well, before you leave us, is there anything you can tell us about future books you're working on?
Ooh, well, we've been going back and redoing a bunch of the Rogue Squadron X-Wing books.
Yeah, I actually got to listen to the third one that just came out.
Was it Krytos?
Yeah, the Krytos trap. Yeah.
And that already came out, did it?
Yes. At the
Gotcha.
time.
Okay,
Yeah.
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 I sometimes miss the release dates of those. So yeah, those have been really fun, and we're actually on Monday. I'm speaking to you from the future, so it'll have already happened. Hopefully, it went well. But I'm going to be starting Back to War, so that's
Okay.
going to be really fun. So that'll be coming out soon. And then that's the only one I can talk about right now. But there's
Obviously,
I'm
the High
hoping.
Republic's going on somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I hope I get to be a part of the Battle for Jeddah. I really hope I get to do that. And yeah. So and Prince of the Scoundrel, like you said, is releasing now. So
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you once again for coming on the show. It was great having you. It's always good talking to you because I enjoyed having our little chit chats about that.
yeah. No, thanks for having me. This has been really fun.